I'm very excited about bringing this class to you. There's a lot of great information in here for anyone who's planning a trip of any sort. There's a lot of different styles of traveling that we'll talk a lot about in here, and the types of photographs that you can take and how to get the best ones with, well, a limited amount of resources while you're doing it. So what I've done is I've broken this class down to different sections where we're going to really look at different aspects of travel photography, whether it's the gear you use, the approach you have, how to look for subjects, how to deal with different types of subjects. Probably one of the most important ones that a lot of people feel uncomfortable with is photographing people. And this is something I completely understand. I have very naturally been a pretty shy person, especially when it comes to going up and talking to strangers. And this is something that I have had to overcome. And there's a lot of different ways of getting great photographs of people. And I have some great experiences and stories to share with you and some real good ideas on how you can go about getting better photographs of people, starting short relationships with them and being able to communicate with them in order to get those better photographs. And so I think that's probably one of the most important sections. I also have a brand new section that I've never done in any previous class on storytelling. And I get to talk a little bit about how to document your trips so that you really have a good record of them, so that you can use the photos and the stories of your experiences for a wide variety of purposes. Now, also part of this class is a PDF. This is not everything I say and show in the class, but this has a lot of the top tips, hints, and other things from the class about equipment and planning and everything else that we talk about in the class. And so this comes with the full class, and this can be very handy for reminding yourself some of the most important aspects of what we talked about here in the class. All right, so, one of the first questions we need to answer in here is that very simple one: what is travel photography? How is it different than anything else? And travel photography is regular photography, but it has a slight little bent on it. And I think travel photography is any photograph that helps tell the story of a location, a city, a country, a place, a people, a culture, anything like that, including your travel. And so it really encompasses a very wide range of photography, which is one of the things that I think makes it so much fun, is that you get to do a lot of different stuff when you are a travel photographer. If you think about all the different genres of photography, well, that's what you can participate in when you are doing travel photography. Now, you might have a few of these that are your favorite. There might be a few that you're not quite as comfortable with. And I think that's all really good because, you can go photograph your favorite style of photography, but you can also use this as a chance to grow as a photographer and expand what you do. Maybe you're not really good at action photography, but you're going to be going someplace where there's events that are happening very quickly, and that's going to be a chance for you to work on that skill set. Or maybe you want to practice ahead of time so that you're ready when you go. I think this will really round out your skills as a photographer. Now, the images that you're going to come home with from wherever it is that you're going is going to be the result of a lot of different factors. And some of these are out of your control. In fact, there's a lot of them that are out of your control. The type of weather you have, the certain events that happen while you are there. Yep, that's part of the fun of traveling, of you just don't know exactly what you're going to get. But there's a lot of things that you do have control over. And that's what I really want to be talking about in this class is, what do you have control over and what can you do about it to kind of bend things more in your favor? Now, two of the most important things that you have control over is your motivation for traveling and taking photos and what actions you take while you're out there. And this is why some people come home with great photos and some people, not so much so, is because of how important photography is to them and what they did in order to go out there and take those photos. So some questions that you need to be answering for yourself now and before your next trip is, what is important to you? Is it the experience? Is it the photo? And how important is it? Is it worth getting up at 7 a.m. to get the photo, or 6 a.m., or 5, or 4, or 3, or you're going to wait all night to get the shot? How important is it for you to do whatever it is that you want to do? And these are things that you just need to suss out ahead of time so that you know the correct expectations of the types of effort you're going to put in and the results that you're going to get back. So, two very important questions for you. Why are you traveling? And why are you taking photos? And I know some of this is kind of obvious, but I want you to dig deep to really understand your motivation and what's important to you. Are you traveling because you want to see a new culture? Are you traveling because you want to relax? Are you traveling because you want to spend some time with people that are important to you? It's okay for you to be traveling for any one of these reasons. But as long as you're clear about what those are, it's going to help you understand where photography fits in with your travels. And that is going to be a key aspect because we're all traveling for multiple reasons. And photography is rarely the sole purpose for most people's travel. And so there is a bit of conflict and compromise when it comes to getting the types of photos that you want. So there are different types of travel photography goals that you need to be aware of. Obviously, capturing great images of a destination are pretty much on everyone's list of either people or scenes or cities or whatever the case may be, capturing those types of photos. But you can also point the camera a little bit more inward towards your travels and documenting what you're doing. And there's a lot of good reasons for this. You could be climbing Mount Everest and you want to show your climbing club back home what the experience was like climbing Mount Everest. You could be doing volunteer work and you're going to a country and you're doing this volunteer work and you want to come home and you want to show your community what you were doing. Maybe you're trying to raise funds or you're trying to get more people to come back and help out. Or maybe you're traveling with your family. You're taking your first big family trip and the kids are kind of young. They may or may not remember everything. And so you really want to document it for your family history. All of these are good reasons, but they're going to lead you to different types of photos that you're going to want to take. And you're going to want to make different plans ahead of time, knowing what your agenda is. And so it's okay to have any goal you want. Just be clear what it is and what it's going to take to make that come true. And so one of the most important questions is, how are your images going to be used? Are they going to be sent out in an email with 3 or 4 photos from your trip? Are you going to do a big documentary for your local community group? How are your images going to be used in what format? And we're going to talk a lot about this in our last section on storytelling, because this is something that I'm really passionate about. One of the first big trips that I took internationally was with a friend of mine to Iceland. We thought it was one of the most far off, interesting places to go, and it may still be that. We were going to do a bike tour for 6 weeks. We're going to circumnavigate the entire island, and we wanted to document for bicycle clubs and our family and friends and community groups what this trip was like. So we had a lot of pictures of us riding bicycles. We had a lot of photos of what Iceland was like, what we saw in Iceland, what we thought was unique and interesting and different. We photographed people that we came across along the way and some of our interactions with them. We, of course, wanted to document our adventure and the rough roads, the harsh environment, and the different problems that we had to deal with along the way. And of course, I wanted to come back with a few really iconic images of us in Iceland that, types of images that couldn't be recorded anywhere else because of the unique nature of Iceland. And some of these were weeks or months in the planning of knowing that this is a location I want to go and this is the type of photo that I want to get. And when we were all said and done, well, we ended up with hundreds of images that helped tell a story of that particular trip, and we put it together in a short documentary, and we've shared hundreds of times with thousands of people. And it's been a great experience reliving that trip again and again in those photos. And so that trip is absolutely embedded in my mind because I spent a lot of time planning it. I spent a lot of time there in Iceland. I was thinking about things on a very deep level, photographically and visually, how I wanted things to turn out. And then getting to relive that story, well, that's been just fun again and again and again. Now, on a very different type of trip, I went to Mongolia. And this really wasn't about my travel experience to Mongolia. This was me just wanting to go to Mongolia to photograph and see an amazing landscape and culture. And so this was much more just photography based on, I want to come back with the best images possible. And so I took every opportunity to try to get the best photographs of the people, the landscapes, whatever was going on. Now, I did time my trip to go during a particular festival, the Nadam Festival. It's kind of like an in-country Olympics. They have a big opening ceremony and they have a lot of different events. Now, the big ones are wrestling, horse racing, and archery, but they do have some other smaller events that go along with it as well. And they have this in the big cities as well as the small towns. So we had multiple chances to photograph this. And this was a great experience, but it was a different style experience of shooting than when I was in Iceland. Now, one of the things I can tell you for sure is travel photography is a lot of fun, but it's also very, very challenging. And if I had to really, explain why it's so challenging, it's because I don't have all the benefits I have of being at home, of infinite time to shoot something whenever I want. A lot of times you're going to end up photographing something that you didn't even know you were going to see. You're coming across it for the first time, so you have no knowledge of it. We do have limited equipment. I do bring a fair bit of camera equipment when I travel, but it's still pretty limited in the big scope of things. And the types of support that you have out there, you got to get things done really quick, and there's not a lot of people to help you out. And so this class is really going to try to address those things. How you approach the travel, your planning of the trip, and of different events that you think that you want to shoot along the way. The tools that you bring and the techniques that you use out in the field, all to solve these different problems you're going to have while you're out traveling. And so hopefully this class is really going to cover a lot of different bases, give you a lot of different things to think about so that you can get the right shots for what you want to do. Now, this class is not about my travels, but it is based off of my learning experience from all my different travels. My first international experience was going to the USSR when I was a student in college. And I really got to be very interested in traveling to places that are not the easiest place to get to. And so that led on to my adventure travels with my buddy Tim. And we had a number of different places that we went where we told long documentary stories about our travels. And so you'll see a number of those photos in this, and I'll talk a lot about that in the storytelling section. I then got maybe the dream job of a lifetime working with Art Wolf and his TV show Travels to the Edge. And we got to travel all over the world. And so I racked up a lot of new countries working with him. And we were documenting cultures and wildlife in various locations. And my job was to help Art with the technical stuff, to document behind the scenes stuff, help some other filming, and the film crew and everything else that was going on. And so be a supportive in that nature. And so that was a lot of fun and gave me a lot of great wisdom for traveling and photography abroad. And since then, I've been traveling a lot on my own, and I've been leading my own photo tours to a wide variety of locations. And being able to share these locations that I've been to before with new people is a lot of fun. I love sharing photography with everyone, and I love sharing travel as well. And so travel photo is where I get to combine all of that together. And so that is something I really enjoy and is a lot of fun. Now, on the old map with pins of places that you've been, I've collected up a pretty good variety of places. There are still some holes in the map, you might say, but I have been to all 7 continents at least twice now. And I have, as I say, I've got a little holes on that map that I plan to fill in as the years go on. And so I'm going to be pulling from as many different places and as many different experiences to help you in your travels with different ideas and techniques that work out. Now, I think if you want to be a good travel photographer, there are many things that you need to be good at because you're covering a lot of territory here. And obviously, the first thing about being a travel photographer is you need to be a good traveler. Not everyone is really made out for traveling, but those who do kind of get out there and do it on their own. But there's certain things that just help you when you're out there. And so I know some of these things are probably going to be a little bit more in your wheelhouse, you might say. Some of them, well, I'm not so good at that. And this is a good chance for you to improve upon those areas that will help make you a better travel photographer. And so this is just one of those things that, well, yeah, that's a good chance for self-improvement. Now, the second part about being a good travel photographer is that you just need to be a good plain old photographer, right? And so you need to be able to photograph a lot of different things. If you want to capture a variety of images, you're going to want to be practicing photography in a lot of different areas. And so Once again, you might have some areas that you're not quite as comfortable. Maybe you don't like photographing people as much. You're not as easy to do that as something else like nature. Well, I say make that a point of improvement for yourself. I've done it. Other people have done it. You can do it as well. And so you can do any type of photography you want if you put your mind to it, you practice it, and you follow the right instructions and skills and what have you to do that sort of thing. You can become a better photographer in that category. Now, I know this is just the intro section to this class, but let me give you some quick travel tips because I know some of you are hankering for something meaty to go right away here. All right. So first up, light and fast, keep you happy and fresh. What that means is don't overload yourself with too many things. You want to be very careful about everything that you bring on your trip, especially camera gear, that it's really things that you absolutely need, not just I might want this, things that you actually need. And so in many cases, you're better off going with one camera and one lens and traveling light for the day than wearing that heavy backpack with 10 different lenses in there. And so light and fast is always going to be a good option. Now, the crowds are going to go to some of the most popular areas, and you should probably go there to check them out. There's probably a lot of great things to see there, but that's only going to get you so far. You're going to need to get off the beaten path and discover those things that not most people see. And that's part of the fun of traveling, in my mind. A positive attitude will go a long way in a lot of foreign environments, and so positive attitude. Light is more important than food. What I mean by this is your meal times, notably breakfast and dinner. Those often occur when the light is really good. And so I try to work my breakfast and dinners around when the light is best. I would rather be out there shooting during those 2 hours, that hour in the morning and that hour in the evening, and get those hours in. And I'm going to either have an early breakfast, a late brunch, or I'm going to move my meals around. I know they're not the times that I normally like to eat, but I'm going to sacrifice things so I can make the best use of my time when I'm out in the field. Always want to respect people and their culture. Don't want to get yourself into any sort of troubles or do anything wrong or make things worse for other photographers coming along later on down the road. No matter how light you travel, you pretty much are always going to want to have a spare battery that is fully charged, a memory card, and a cleaning cloth. And I know memory cards carry a lot of photos on there, but occasionally there's communication errors and you need a new memory card to fix the problem, and they're so small and light, it's something that you should pretty much always have on with you, no matter where you go, no matter how lightweight you are traveling. Now, great photos really, truly can be any place. They're not necessarily every place, but they can be any place. And so a little bit of wandering and going in places that other people might not suspect as great photos. And so if you ask the concierge at your hotel, where can I get great photos? If they're not a photographer, they're not going to know exactly where to direct you. They might point you to a few of the most popular tourist spots, but chances are there's a lot of other things to be discovered and photographed that can become great photos. If you have the time to be early to check things out, different shooting locations, what it looks like in different light, what it looks like the day before, so you know exactly where to park the car or how to get transportation to that particular location. And so time is a big battle here because you want as much of it as possible so that you can really suss out what you are doing. You want to be comfortable when you're shooting. And so if you have a bathroom opportunity, it seems like when you're traveling, you're always out and about. So take every good opportunity you get. As I say, you want to be comfortable and thinking clearly when you're out there shooting. And health and safety are your top priorities. If you're not feeling good, you're probably not going to shoot good photos. I remember the first time I climbed Mount Rainier, a 14,000 foot mountain not too far from where I live. And it's a long, hard climb. And I got to the top and I was trying to photograph the mountain itself and the climbing, the experience and all of that. I got to the top and I took 4 photos. That's all I took because I was just so tired from climbing. Luckily, I did climb it some more times and I was able to get some more photos up there. But if you're not feeling good, you want to make sure that you're eating, you're sleeping as best you can. You want to be feeling right. And so that's also going safe and being safe with you and all of those sorts of things that we're not going to get into right now. But you want to make sure that that's all covered so that you can focus on your photography. Now, getting great photos can be something that you can practice at home. I live in the Seattle area, so photographing the Space Needle in Seattle is something I've been doing my whole life because that's where I live, and I have the maximum opportunity for getting good shots here because I have infinite time that I am spending here. And so if you want to get great photos, there are usually some classic locations that you can go to. Here in Seattle on Queen Anne Hill, there's a little park called Cary Park. It's an overlook, and it's just got the best view of Seattle. It's just in the right area. You go there with the right light, the right time of day, you're going to get all the best shot of Seattle. Now, it's been shot a billion times before, so that's probably not the only shot you want to get. And so you want to do something different, and that's what photographers are famous for, is getting that different point of view that the normal person doesn't see. And so finding a different way to photograph that subject is something that you want to try. You also might want to try coming back in different light. You were there in the evening, come back in the morning, vice versa. Try it out at these different times to see what it looks like. Now, you might also want to have your subject as a kind of minor element, a supporting element to other things that are going on. And so be a little bit more cryptic and mystical in your photographs. And so showing it in there, yeah, it's in there, but it's just a minor portion of the frame. And finally, get that telephoto, that zoom lens out, and shoot the close-up detail to really show it in a more detailed way that you might not see in that more classical standard view. And using those 5 different types of shots, you're going to end up with a variety of shots of a particular subject or location that'll give you a different feel and a different understanding for what that subject is. Now, when you practice that at home, well, you just take that on the road and you photograph it there. For me, a great travel location is Istanbul, Turkey, in the Blue Mosque. And so, I'm going to want to go to that classic view and get that view knocked off my list right away. And then I'm going to explore and wander and try to do something a little different. I'm going to try some unusual framing compositions to see how I can get it to, just create a different photograph. Maybe it's not the best photograph of the Blue Mosque, but it's a good photograph in and of its own right. I'm going to try shooting at different times of day to see what sort of light combinations I can get with the surrounding environment, the lights on the building. I'm going to include other elements so that once again, it's in the background. It's a secondary element in the photograph, but obviously a very important one. And then I'm going to get in close and I'm going to shoot some of the details and create maybe an abstract pattern of it so close up. And so I can end up with a variety of images that can be used in a variety of ways that gives us a different look on that particular subject. And so you can use that with pretty much any subject and any location that you go to. Now, finally, here in the introduction section, I want to talk just a little bit about what the rest of this class is going to involve. This next section is going to be on planning your trip, setting expectations, which is very, very important in all sorts of travel. We'll talk about traveling with other people, which can be, a little challenging. Getting your priorities set right, how to get a schedule set right for getting good photographs, and the pros and cons of planning a shoot versus just wandering and finding good shots, because great shots can be found in either way. We're going to pull out some gear. We're going to be talking about some cameras, lenses, tripods, and other things, the few essentials that you really need when you're traveling and how to use them and what you might want to have along with you. We'll get into the technical side of photography. I'll talk about literally shutter speeds and apertures and ISOs that you're going to want to set for different types of photography. We'll talk a little bit about workflow, whether you want to bring your computer or not. How do you back up, safely storing all your images? And so I've got a good number of tips in there to help you out. Next up, scouting. How do you look at a new location that you've never been to? What do you look for? How do you make a plan that's going to work for your travels and for your photography? And so you've got a lot of things to think about here and really setting the agenda for what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. And then I have a section on locations. And this is not about shooting great photos in these particular countries. These are more lessons learned trying to get photographs in these countries. And these are lessons that can be applied anywhere you go. And I think there are lots of good learning experiences where I'm going to show you the first photograph I took of a particular location and how it progressed to a better photo, and the steps that I took, the elements that I looked at, the changes I made, and how I worked the situation in order to go from an okay photograph, or maybe even a bad photograph, to something I was very happy with. And these are the types of things, as I say, you can apply anywhere you go. Next up, we'll look at details that you're going to be photographing, whether it's buildings or flowers or any other sorts of close-ups, different ideas for including those into your travel photographs. Maybe the most important section in this class is photographing people. This is something a lot of photographers do not feel comfortable with. And this is something I like to talk about a lot because I am very uncomfortable photographing people in a general sense. But I have found that through the camera, I have been more open and welcoming and communicative with people. And it's led to some very great experiences. And I'm glad that I've had the camera with me, because I wouldn't have gone up and talked to these people if I didn't have the camera as an excuse. And it really opened the door to a lot of great experiences, in my opinion. And just kind of as a side bonus, got some really nice photos too of those experiences, which make me very happy. We'll talk about shooting events. I'm going to show you some particular events that I've been to shoot, and some of the challenges and techniques that I've used to get the best photographs in situations that were well out of my control. I was a small little peon of this event, and I just wanted to try to come back with a few great photos. And there's a lot of techniques that you can use that, once again, can be applied in a wide variety of areas. And the section maybe I'm most excited talking about is storytelling with photographs. If you're going to write a story, there's certain techniques and styles that you use. If you're going to film a movie, there's certain techniques you use there. And telling a story with individual photos is a little bit different. It's pretty close to cinematography, but it's definitely different than writing. And there is a lot of things that you need to figure out ahead of time about your project of what you want to do. And once again, as I say, whether you're climbing Mount Everest, you're doing volunteer work, or you're just going on a family vacation and you want to tell a good, cohesive story, there are some really important things that you need to do ahead of time and while you're out in the field. And I want to share my ideas with you because I think they're going to help you tell better visual stories when you're out there. So there you go, folks. That's what this class is all about. As you can see, it's something I'm very interested and excited to share with you. And when you're done with this class, you are definitely going to be taking much better travel photos. So there's a lot to go in here. Hope to see you there in the next sections.